let's get started. So, using AI to close the data to action gap. That's the title of today's webinar. And I'm really excited to be joined by both Heta Pirttijärvi, VP of Product at Sievo, and Fabio Herle, who's a head of EMEAI Markets at Pactum. So, Sievo is the leader in procurement analytics, and Pactum is the leader in autonomous negotiations. And what's funny is that even though both companies are very international now, they've both expanded across America and Europe and beyond. Actually, both companies started very close to each other, just across the bay, one in Helsinki, one in Tallinn. And then also, actually, I know Sievo's main office is in Chicago, and Pactum has lots of people, well, a few people in Chicago as well. So the two companies have been physically very close together, but also are now integrating their technologies, and that's what we're going to focus on today. So all of you watching this webinar are invited to ask questions if you type them into the chat, and I'm going to come back at the end and take some of those. So Heta is over in Helsinki. Now, Finns, like Estonians, have a reputation for being very straight talking, very efficient with words. And I think you're going to see that in this webinar. We're really going to focus on, being as efficient as possible for you. So Heta, please take it away.
Great, thank you. And welcome everyone also on my behalf. Really great to see so many of you here today. So I'm indeed Heta, VP Product here at Sievo. So let's talk about revolutionizing procurement analytics. Now, I really want to talk about the procurement data challenge, but also the opportunity. So nowadays, as we know, procurement's role has really expanded. We need to talk not only about just pure savings in euro or dollar value, we need to look at sustainability, we need to look at all the risks. Things are just happening faster, there's AI, a lot happening, and we need to do this with less resources. And this is where the opportunity really comes in, because there are a lot of new developments that help with this. Now, the key thing is that, I mean, we're a procurement analytics company, but I really strongly believe that analytics in itself has zero value, absolutely zero, if you don't take action. It's the actions that really drive the value. Now, when we have data and we want to get to action, let's say there's a supply chain disruption somewhere and we want to act on it. Now, analytics traditionally has helped us understand, what happened, why did it happen, what will happen, maybe even what should I do. But there's a lot of that human input needed there. And now, if you have, let's say, 100,000 suppliers, you just realistically won't have time to actually, for instance, negotiate with all of them. So this is really where the unlocking of this data to action gap brings tremendous value that we just can't not unlock in the world of today. And the key thing is that the AI-powered analytics, so getting from that data to the action, it's really not about better decisions. If we make a bit better decisions, optimize our payment terms here and reduce costs there, get a bit of a better supplier there, that really won't make the impact that's needed in today's world. So it's not about better decisions, it's about faster decisions, and it's about more of them. So faster and more decisions. And Gen AI can help in both. It can help in the whole data side, and then it can help in the action side. Now, what I have here on the screen, and somehow to me, it looks like the pictures are very blurry. I don't know if you're seeing the same. Point is, there's a lot that AI can help with, for instance, crawling supplier information on the web, classifying all your spend, where you have them in different buckets, or then on the action side, it can generate emails to your suppliers automatically, etc. And these are some of the things that we have in our system in Sievo. But I really want to talk about the bottom right-hand thing, which is automated negotiations. And that's the topic of today, which I think somehow can potentially even bring the most value of these. I'll hand it over soon to Fabio, but I mentioned that these are things that we have in Sievo. But you may be wondering, okay, what is Sievo? What company are you even talking about? So one slide about us. What we are, we're a procurement analytics company, so your solution to procurement excellence. We work with the largest companies in the world, so large enterprises love Sievo, the Coca-Cola FEMSAs, the Levi's, the Marses of the world. And have been the market leader for about 20 years, specifically in procurement technology. And what we really aim to give our customers and what all of these super happy customers get from us is annual savings and ensuring a resilient and sustainable diverse supply chain. So procurement excellence taken to the next level. But this is Sievo's side. Then we collaborate here with Pactum, and I'll hand it over to Fabio to explain this slide.
Yes, hi everyone. Also from my side. So basically this kind of like this slide explains the combination of the two, what one could call this double punch is on the left hand side you have Sievo as really a leader or the leader regarding procurement analytics, identifying actions, opportunities for improvement to generate value within procurement. And on the right-hand side, you have Pactum, which is focusing strictly on providing let's say, the ability to conduct autonomous negotiations, meaning a chatbot that is interacting with suppliers when procurement doesn't have time to do it themselves. Yes. And now the magic or the combination of the two is really, as Heta explained before, is closing that gap to be able to take action on insights which Sievo is providing, and then if you're not interested to doing yourself, you can trigger Pactum to engage with your suppliers to conduct a negotiation. I think in a nutshell, this is what this is about. Yep. Let's move on to the next slide, please. Then just a few, I'd say also a few words to introduce Pactum. I think a lot of the audience here might be just knowing about Sievo, being Sievo customers and not knowing about Pactum. As Adam said at the beginning, Pactum is also an international, or you could say a global company. We have customers across the globe. Similar as Sievo, we are focusing on enterprises. So as a solution for those procurement organizations, for these larger companies, across different markets. And basically, as I said before, the number one thing which we're focusing on is really providing that step of being able to conduct a negotiation when you in procurement don't have the time or don't have the resource or the interest to do it yourself. Yes, so we're focusing mainly on the, let's say, on tail spend negotiations, and when the buyer or the strategic sourcing manager is making the decision, I don't have the time to handle it by myself. Yes, and to say the way that the solution is working, you'll see right after this slide, Heta will show you a demo of the end-to-end process. But when we think about an autonomous negotiation itself, how does it work? Yes, somehow there is a need identified somewhere, then the process is triggered, an email goes out to the supplier, and then the supplier is engaging with the system to reach a deal regarding the scope that is on the table for the two parties to negotiate. And then afterwards, there are some results, and also these results somehow need to be fed back to the customer system. And for that, we cooperate together with our partners. I think this year is a very good example because it's like the first partnership which we are doing together with Sievo, which is really focused on getting clear actions and then acting on those to generate results and then feeding those back to the customers. Yes, I think that's it. From my side on Pactum, let's move on to the demo. Yeah.
Nice. Let's do so. So I have a demo. I think it takes about 2 minutes, 3 minutes. So this is the demo in action. I think we're getting right into it. This is the most exciting thing anyway, to really see how the tool works. So I'm currently in Sievo's Insights hub, where I can see all the insights that the AI has already kind of identified for me. I don't need to scroll through the data, but I already have decarbonizing opportunities and local price opportunities, et cetera, that the system has already identified for me. Now, I want to look at payment term recommendations. It's the first one there. And it looks like I have a pretty big open insight from Provenord, 1 million euros in payment term recommendations. And it looks like the AI recommended payment term is net 45 days based on Sievo's community data, which is 14 days better than my current payment terms. And this has been found from Sievo's other customers that we've anonymized and aggregated, but showing that other customers actually have better payment terms. So I'll assign it to me, I'll mark it as active, and I'll create an initiative about it in Sievo's system. So I think the savings potential is even bigger. I think it's 1.5 million euros. And I can start tracking this insight in Sievo, then collaborating with different parties to really drive those savings, whatever savings it may be.
The past 4 years I've been working on in delivery and operations at Pactum, so I can speak a bit about that. I think the first thing to mention is that the information here is really geared towards customers of Sievo, which are already using Sievo. If that is not the case, then the process might take a bit longer, since you would also have to implement Sievo to use that specific combination of these two solutions. So implementing Pactum is I think is rather straightforward. The use case which we saw, usually the time is between 1 and 4 weeks. So rather quickly. The solution itself to be able to interact with suppliers. What comes on top of that, in regarding to what we're talking about here, is the integration with Sievo, which takes around about 2 weeks to set up that connection for you between the two systems. The good thing, or the positive thing around it, is that we are not just giving you the APIs and then you have to, you have to do it yourself, so to speak. But the integration is managed and led by Pactum and Sievo for the customers, and this is what should make it more efficient for you guys who are listening and then might be interested in this. Yes. I think that's it. So very short implementation time, quick aim to go live, and then and then you can start to take action on those topics that pop up and that you want to follow up with coming in from Sievo, and then let it run to Pactum to engage with the suppliers.
Perfect.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Fabio. Oh, sorry, I'm cutting you off there, Heta.
No, I was just saying that, yes, I'm personally super excited for this. I mean, Sievo's big strategy is really closing the data to action gap, and I think Pactum is like a perfect example of that. So, yes, but yeah, go ahead.
We've got some great questions coming through, so everyone else feel free to ask them as well. Do I have the option to intervene manually in the negotiation if I see it going in a direction I don't want?
Good question. Yes. I give two answers. The first answer is you can track the negotiation, and theoretically, one could intervene in a negotiation. You could reach out to Pactum support, or you could also contact, let's say, the supplier, or call them directly. However, the second answer is that we would try to avoid that at all costs, because there's a number of reasons for that. The first thing is the same thing. When you negotiate as a human with a person and then somebody steps into the process, it might be challenging to take it up again afterwards. So the machine, it really needs the authority to be able to close a deal with the supplier, and this ensures that the supplier takes the machine also seriously, and they're really negotiating with it. However, how do you enable the machine to make sure that there are no mistakes made? When we are setting up the solution, we align with the customers very clearly what is the system allowed to talk about and what not. For example, if we take payment terms, which payment terms are you using with your suppliers? Which payment terms would you like the system to be able to discuss with the suppliers, and for example, also what not? So in a nutshell, we're setting up what we call a value function, a contract space, which has precise, clear boundaries down to the dollar, to the penny, or the euro cent. So the system cannot offer anything to the suppliers which is not in your interest, and the system also cannot accept anything from the suppliers, which is not in the interest of the customer. It might be, let's say, a topic, but it might also be from a valuation perspective. So the system is always precisely calculating. And when there is a positive deal that is above a certain threshold relevant for the customer, then it can accept it. And if that is not the case, then it cannot say no to something. It would push back against the supplier. Yeah. And this, I would say, having this setup enables really the system to have the authority to really negotiate and close deal with the suppliers without somebody having to be afraid, hey, what happens if, can it go wrong or not? No, it can't. Yeah. Yes, Adam.
Yeah, so I guess if you're going to be doing it at scale, you're going to need those bots to be able to have the authority to close it. The second question actually is very similar. It's can anything a bot say be legally binding? So maybe some of you are thinking of there was a court case in Canada where it was ruled that a company is responsible for what its chatbot says. That was a case in customer service, but I'm sure that's on people's minds as well. And I guess Fabio, like you never want to be in that position, do you? Because the bot should always be
Yes.
acting within your parameters. You never want
Yes.
to be in a position where you have to go back to a supplier and say, we didn't mean that.
Yes, correct. Yeah. So we never, how to say, we never, or so the how to say, the rule that we're setting up, they are so strict that it's not possible to go off the track. Yeah. Because otherwise it's a good question because otherwise, just to be very straightforward, we would like the customers that we have. I mean, Walmart, as an example, Vodafone, Henkel, Linde, they would not allow the system to engage with their suppliers for, let's say, for business deals. Yeah, and I mean, some of the deals are multiple millions. That the system is can negotiate. Yeah, so it's really serious stuff, and there is no, how to say, there is really no, how to say, way that the system can go off track. Because everything that is possible is checked beforehand by both parties to make really sure it's 100% safe.
Hmm. So generative AI helps power the negotiation, preparations, and all this, but every final word said by the chatbot is going to be rules-based AI. You're going to be able to trust everything
Yeah,
it says.
yeah. So
Um,
the users are not, let's say, users in this case, the supplier is a user, then they're not able to try to trigger and stimulate the system to go off track, for example. That's not, we don't allow this. Yeah.
our
Yes, Adam.
next question is, what if, so excuse me, a good question. What if the supplier is not actively responding to the chatbot? So what do you do about suppliers who just don't want to negotiate with an AI, and how common is that?
So on our side, the first thing is that there is a, let's say, a sequence of reminders, reminder emails that is set up in the background, depending on the use case and based on the, let's say, the experience that we have across the globe. Um, Before that, we do a contact confirmation, reaching out to the person. Are you sure that you're the right person? We would like to discuss this topic. Is the right contact? Because it's not always the right email address or the right contact that the organizations have maintained in their systems. And then beyond that, as part of that sequence, what can also take place, can happen is that if phone numbers are available, it can also happen that our support then is calling the suppliers. Let's say the supplier received the email, he confirmed the contact, but then it can happen they didn't react at all then they didn't start the negotiation as a first step, or then they started the negotiation or stopped in the middle but didn't contact our support, didn't come back with any questions. They just stopped in the middle and then suddenly didn't continue for a number of days. Yes, a reminder goes out, second reminder email goes out, supplier still not reacting. What then can happen is that, because that's also part of the sequencing, that our support is then calling the supplier and they're asking, hey, are you on vacation, or trying to reach them? Yeah, why have you not finished the process to trigger them to finish the process? Yeah, and show the results are there. Yes, Adam.
Thank you very much. And Heta, a question for you about Sievo data. And so how much does Sievo share data between customers so that your customers can get a sense of, for example, payment terms to be able to compare their practices against?
Yeah. So first of all, I think good to note that we only share the data with customers, or from customers who have given their okay, so who have given their consent to that, and it's always anonymized, always aggregated. It's a very valuable piece of our product, but it's super important that we get that right because it's confidential data. So far, a lot more than half, so most of our customers have given that okay, just because they can also get some useful information in return. So
I see. So if you give more data away, you get more back in return then as well.
yeah,
Okay.
exactly.
And actually, also to you, Fabio, in terms of data sharing. So I guess the only data that's benefiting other customers is the negotiation science, how what leads negotiations to better outcomes. That's the only data really that's being shared. Yeah.
So, yeah, from our side, what I can say is that the data that we are receiving from our customers to use in the, let's say, what is the negotiation about? Nothing of that is shared with other customers, yeah, as well as also the, let's say, it might be a response of the supplier, a text, some response, or it might be a price or an indication of a price, a counter offer which a supplier is making. This sort of information is of course also, we are not allowed to share that across customers, yeah, and that only goes to the customer. And the reason is that it can also be that competitors are using Pactum, for example, and it might of course also be that the suppliers might not be comfortable with that at all. Yeah, let's say if it's the same thing as if you're human, you're in the negotiation, supplier makes you an offer, and then if you go directly to your colleague in another procurement organization and send them an email, and the supplier hears about it, that you shared that this person at that day in that meeting made an offer of this size. If they hear about it, they would not like it at all. Yeah, because it's usually not allowed. Yeah. Yes, Adam.
There's some great questions about the supplier perspective again, because obviously the whole thing doesn't work unless the suppliers are on board as well. So do my suppliers have to use Pactum as well? It seemed like without it, the automated interaction would be more difficult. So I guess he thinks there's is there a login process for the supplier?
Um, yes, but it takes like, I don't know, 2 seconds or so, 2, 3 seconds to so it's not, I would say it's not a registration process or an onboarding process. It's just a login and access process, which takes 2, 3 seconds. The suppliers really receive their individual link to that negotiation, specifically for that negotiation. So there is not a portal where they get a login, where they can log in again and again and again at each point in time. It's like, now there is a negotiation. Now you receive an email with a link, and then you can access that specific negotiation. You get the access for that. Yeah.
Fabio, I think I read a blog post from you actually that Pactum user design was developed first for the suppliers and then for the procurement customers.
Yes, yeah, because that's correct. And the how to say, the at the end of the day, our solution, as the question hinted at, from that person, it's really like it stands and falls with the supplier interaction. How happy are they really happy? And we regularly do, let's say, each supplier gives a feedback, quality can give a qualitative feedback and as well as a quantitative feedback at the end of the negotiation. And we are really monitoring that rigorously and ensuring on a constant basis that we can improve the supplier experience. Yeah, because at the end of the day, if the supplier is not able, let's say, if they don't have enough flexibility to give a certain input, or if the system is not putting offers on the table that they can understand, yes, for if the way that the information is displayed, if it's not done in a way that leads to a good user experience for the suppliers, then it's as the question hinted at, then the conversion or the engagement rate would not be there, and therefore there wouldn't be any value for the customers. Yeah. So it's definitely an important topic, and I can say we are very good at that. Yeah.
And Sagnik wants to know kind of how does the supplier integration work? Can smaller suppliers be integrated with this? So how does it work loading suppliers?
Yes.
system.
Yes, so the suppliers don't have to do any integration. It's really just an email and the internet, so internet access. They receive an email to access the negotiation. So we have, for example, in the US it's often called ma and pa shops. So you have sometimes also along the tail, you can sometimes have very small suppliers that then for the first time in their life can have a negotiation with their customer because humans would never engage with them because they would be too small. Yeah.
And a related question, yeah. So is this solution typically used for tail spend?
Yes. So the way we position it um, in general, autonomous negotiations right now, only very few customers use it with suppliers that that in the past have negotiated with human. Yeah, the big majority of customers, and this is also how we position it, is really to enable you to negotiate with suppliers, or let's say to enable the system to negotiate on your behalf with suppliers where you don't have the time, or let's say also your business colleagues and stakeholders in your organization, let's say somebody who put in a request or is interested to optimize payment terms, or now in this case here was giving the input that there is a potential, yes, that call to action, and you don't have the time to deal with, and then it's on the tail spend usually where the interaction is taking place. Yeah. What can differ now in the specific use case which we've shown here is that, of course, that call to action, this can also come for a larger supplier. Yeah. And then how to say, the decision is on really is can differ from company to company, how they, multi-million supplier for a very large enterprise can be a tail end supplier, and the same supplier for another enterprise, for another procurement organization can be a small, to say, and not a small, can be a strategic and important supplier, and therefore a person is interacting with it and not a machine. Yeah. So focus on suppliers where humans are not interacting with, which is usually called, I would say, tail spend. Yeah.
Hmm. And so Danish asks, can this be integrated with any purchasing system like Ariba or Coupa?
Yes, but you wouldn't have the insights the way we displayed it. I mean, what we showed today is the combination of Pactum and Sievo to generate to have those actions and be able to act on those. Of course, we are also, let's say, Coupa or Ariba, we are also integrating with those systems, but they're let's say those, I think what Sievo was calling in their solution is called insights. That is not there yet. That doesn't exist there.
Perfect. And Danish has actually asked a few good questions. Does for each project a unique negotiation strategy need to be drafted and uploaded into the system for them to negotiate on our behalf?
No, that would not be feasible from an economic or business perspective. Yeah, so it's really again focusing on the tail, having a general, let's say, for the example of payment terms, this use case, before we set it up, we really align with you. Like, what is the setup? What is your strategy regarding improving working capital? Then we set up the system that way, and then anything which comes in from Sievo is ensured that it follows that strategy. Yeah, so you don't have to set it up for each event, for each project again and again and again. Yeah, you might change that strategy, let's say 2 years down the road. Your strategy regarding working capital might change. Yeah, and then we would sit together and update that. Yeah, but it doesn't have to be done on an ad hoc basis.
And similar question on strategy. Do we need to set our most desirable outcome and least desirable outcome for each negotiation? So getting into
Not,
negotiation.
yeah, not for each negotiation, but we will set that up holistically. Yeah.
And
And it's possible to do that. Yeah.
and how does a negotiation conclude, and how does the system determine if it could be a win-win situation?
Uh, so how does okay, let's maybe take the second question first. How does the system determine if if it can be a win-win negotiation? By understanding what the supplier is offering, or what are the preference of the supplier. By understanding, I mean like being financially able to rate that, and at the same time also being able financially to understand what are the interests of the customer. Yeah. And by interest, I mean also from a mathematical, statistical, financial perspective. Yeah. And this means then in let's say in reality, what it means, you saw in the demo, you saw the system made ABC, I think three different options it put on the table for the supplier. And the way that the system is putting those offers together is based on the data that is as available for the customer, as well as the strategy that has been defined. Yeah. And then the system can go to the supplier and say, hey, for example, we can focus on net days, but then if you want to do net days, let's say 90 days, 120 days, whatever, like longer duration for the payment, I would might need to have something in return. Or in another case, we could also do something else, which is, let's say, payment days with early payment discount in combination. And the system really would then understand in detail what is the difference between those two options, depending on the amount of spend that is being negotiated with the supplier. Yeah. So in order to make a proper decision. Yeah. And then it can really find out, let's say the supplier, I would like this. The system says, yeah, ideally I would like this, but I have also this other option, which from a financial perspective, it's the same. It has the same value for our customer. I put it on the table and the supplier accepts it.
Can negotiation levers be improved over time following the initial setup? Are these levers specific to categories, areas of spend? So I guess you've talked about how
Yes.
you can evolve
Yes.
over time.
Yes, to all the questions, yes. Can be
Maybe
changed over time and can be specific. Yeah.
maybe would you be able to elaborate on how do customers tend to get started? What do they focus on? And then what other kind of parameters and factors do they tend to bring in over time?
Hey, what we show today is really what customers focus on, improving working capital. I mean, focus on as a first step. Yeah, it's one of our simplest use cases. It's easy to set up. There is a lot of potential out there, as we have seen from Sievo, and that's why this combination that we have shown today is so. I think it's so super interesting to be used by procurement organizations. Yeah.
Perfect. So we've now answered every question that's come in. Maybe one more from me to both of you. You've talked about how Pactum and Sievo serve many of the world's largest companies. Is there an ideal size of company on revenue or ideal kind of spend amount to be able to use a Sievo and Pactum and use them together?
For us, maybe the ideal customer profile is more than 1 billion in spent euros in spent. So typically, kind of the more complex, then the more value we can give. But I think that's a general guideline.
Yep, and it's the same for us. Yeah. So enterprises. Yeah.
Perfect. And I think on that agreement, on that alignment, we can wrap up. Thank you so much for your time, Heta and Fabio. Thank you everyone for watching. We're going to email you all with, we'll send a link to the full video so you can share it with others. Last time I saw Sievo was at DPW Amsterdam, the procurement conference there. It was a great conference. And actually there was a whole stage session on autonomous negotiations there. So I think when we email you, I'll drop a link to that as well, that video as well worth watching. Thank you so much for joining us.